It gives me great pleasure and now to bring on board the Steel Secretary of India, Mr. Sandeep Poundrik, to talk about the dynamics of the steel sector. A lot is at play in the steel sector. One, the industry is going through a cyclical slowdown. The government has really been on fast track, and the ministry has been hitting the ground running to ensure that the manufacturing tilt and the global competitive remains strong. Last time when we spoke to the steel secretary, he did acknowledge and indicated that the local industry needs some degree of protection, and they were examining that. And everybody is curious to understand that what is the future of SAIL, considering that it is part of the non-core asset. So, sir, good morning. Happy New Year. So nice to have you back.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
It's cold in Delhi, and it's cold for the steel sector.
That's true.
I know when the weather will change, but you'll have to tell me when will the weather change for the steel sector.
Okay, so as we discussed last time, the international outlook for steel, and it's not good in terms of demand and prices both. The international demand is stagnant, more or less. India is perhaps the only major economy which is showing a robust growth in demand. In fact, if we see the figures for this calendar year, this financial year from April to December 24, the demand has grown by roughly 11%. So I don't think any other major economy is showing such kind of demand growth. Having said that, the prices are still under pressure, and which is affecting the domestic steel industry. If we see the prices, the flat product, which is mostly taken as a benchmark for steel sector, HR coil, the prices have come down about $100 in last 1 year. So from about 680, 690 to now they are ranging around 580 or so. And this obviously is affecting the steel sector. The main reason for concern for India is also that as the demand is growing, we expect that from, we consumed about 145 million tons of steel last year. And if the demand grows at about 10% or 9%, we will need about 260, 270 million tons of steel for domestic consumption by 2030 or so, which basically translates to a capacity of 300 million ton plus. So while if you only take the capacity, present capacity and the steel sector, the prices may still be okay. But if you take into account the capacity augmentation requirements of the country, which is roughly 120 million tons, to be Atmanirbhar, to be self-sustainable, then basically we need about $120 billion of investment for creating this capacity. And that's why the capital investment requirements or capacity of the steel sector becomes more important. So having said that, the main issue being raised by the steel industry is that the domestic prices should be protected against cheap imports, or as we call the dumping of cheap steel. The industry has filed an application with Director General of Trade Remedies, DGTR, for imposition of a safeguard duty. It's a quasi-judicial kind of process where DGTR issues a notice, asks for responses from various stakeholders. And I think the last date as of now is 22nd of January for giving responses. And then DGTR will give its recommendations to the government after having seen the injury or the damages to the steel sector, domestic steel sector due to imports, and then the government will take a decision on the safeguard duty. So that is, I think, the status as of now on the imposition or not of safeguard duty. It will basically depend on the recommendation of DGTR.
So, sir,
Thank
the
you.
recommendation to submit feedback is 22nd of Jan, and then it will go to the government, and then government will take a decision. So, can I say that, let's say, the outside timeline could be, let's say, 15th of Feb, by which a decision by the government should be expected?
I would think so, if not 15th, at least in February, because DGTR normally takes, after having received the responses, they normally take 2 weeks, 3 weeks to compile them, assess them, take time to analyze them and give their recommendation. Maybe by end of February, I would give that timeline for decision of the government.
What is the difference in a safeguard duty and anti-dumping duty? Because there is a difference in safeguard duty, anti-dumping duty, and countervailing duty. Which way would the tilt be?
So anti-dumping is specifically on a particular country. So suppose the industry files an application that imports or cheap imports from a particular country are affecting the domestic industry, then anti-dumping investigations will start against that particular country, and then the decision will be taken whether the application or the request of the industry has merit, and then accordingly anti-dumping duty will be imposed on specific products or specific countries. Safeguard duty is one duty where it's generic in the nature that there are two things. One is that it is imposed on all imports. So the FTAs don't come into picture. You mentioned three duties. There's a fourth duty called basic custom duty, which is 7.5% presently. The thing is, BCD is not applicable on countries or import from countries where FTAs are there. And as of now, we have roughly about 60-61% of steel imports from FTA route or countries with which India has FTA. So BCD only impacts about 40% of the imports. Safeguard duty, if imposed, on the other hand, is applicable on all imports unless specific exceptions are made by the government on specific products or specific countries. So safeguard duty is sort of more, the coverage is more for safeguard duty. Anti-dumping, as I said, is on specific damages to the industry from specific countries. I don't think industry has filed any anti-dumping application recently, except one investigation on 2 or 3 products which was going on earlier. So that's the status.
There is a currency factor at play, sir, now, which is that when the investigations were started, the rupee level was different. Now the rupee level is very different. Will that be also taken into consideration while making the assumptions and calculations? Because imports now automatically will become expensive given that rupee has depreciated 2-3% in last 1 quarter or so.
Yeah, I think that will, because when the DGTR will make the calculations or assessment, they will take landed price of imported steel in India in INR. So I think currency will have an impact. Presently, I think there is still pressure on domestic steel producers because of the imports. But yes, you are correct. The currency will play a role in that.
And in your assessment, the 7.5% duty right now, what could be the maximum threshold for it so that the objective of this exercise is achieved? Could it be a marginal uptick, or it has to go to at least 20% plus?
See, if we consider BCD, basic custom duty, the main maybe a 15% BCD will be offsetting the price differential between imported steel and the domestic. But as I said, the main problem there is that this BCD is not applicable on a majority of the imports. That is 60% of the imports. Uh, so it only affects 40% and 60% remain unaffected. So BCD will not really solve the whole problem uh, as far as the domestic steel industry is concerned.
So then what will solve the problem? Because
As I
the
said,
no sir,
the safeguard duty is applicable on all imports. So that DGTR investigation and decision by the government that will cover all imports. BCD will only cover 40% of it.
I understand that, but the spirit of my next question is that we are looking at moving and protecting a sector at a time when we know that the tariffs in the world could be changed given that there would be change of regime in United States. While basic custom duty does not come under the purview of FTA, what happens to safeguard duty? A combination of safeguard duty and BCG, could that come under the ambit of FTA?
Safeguard duty is allowed under the World Trade Organization rules. Is safeguard duty if the DGTR recommends and finds that there is damage or injury to the domestic steel industry, then safeguard duty is legal, possible to be imposed as per international regulations. So it will depend on the investigation, assessment, and recommendation of the DGTR and then the decision of the government.
But if I have to, let's say, summarize the part one of an interview, can I say that the message from the Steel Secretary of India is that the government is, in a sense, ready to do whatever it takes to protect the steel industry? Because there was a time when what was happening in the steel sector per se, there was hardly any government support coming in, and that led to a huge downfall a couple of years ago for the steel sector because the government intervention was not there. Can I say the government policy making right now is going to be very different and they would do whatever it takes to protect and keep the sector stable?
So I will put it this way that in view of the additional capacity requirement of the country to keep it Atmanirbhar in steel on a long-term basis, and the capital investment required in the sector in view of the robust growth of demand, government and steel ministry both will take all measures to ensure that the sector is able to make investments. Make investments and is not affected by cheap imports. Yes.
Okay. But the bottom line, sir, here is that the Indian steel industry has to be competitive. I mean, the reason why imports are happening is because you are not competitive. And that could be done with a combination of land labor laws and the PLI schemes. You've announced some PLI schemes for the steel sector. When do you see those factors would be at play? And when do you think, while we want to become Atmanirbhar, when do you think we will be globally, competitive?
So there are two things. Number one is that our steel sector, I think, is quite modern and competitive. The only imports which affect us mostly are from, means basically because of the overcapacity in the international market, and then because the countries are not reducing their production, so the prices are going down. But I agree with you to some extent that there are some challenges before the domestic steel industry in terms of efficiencies. So I think two things which our steel industry has to work on. One is process efficiency, that they get the best technologies, improve the efficiency, reduce the cost. especially for the public sector, but also for private. Second is use of digital technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning, all these modern tools to reduce their costs. Uh, Third challenge which I see is in terms of raw material security or raw material availability. So there are certain challenges before the steel industry. They have to reduce their cost in terms of process, manpower costs, especially in the PSUs, uh, and to become globally competitive. Uh, and I think most of the industry in the, especially the ISPs, are globally competitive, but there are certain international the price scenario right now is affecting them, and the demand which is growing uh, will offset to some extent that pressure. But yes, I agree with you that they will have to take measures to remain competitive, reduce their cost by some measures which I mentioned.
Uh, the government has already called the steel sector investments as non-core, something which we've discussed also in the past. And you said that, look, sale is critical, but it is not crucial. Uh, where is the expansion for sale headed if it is not critical, but it is crucial? Are you committed to just keep sale viable, visible, or it is a good to have business which will not get a lot of government attention?
Uh, so, as you know, that SAIL has a capacity out of 180 million tons in the country presently. Uh, or rather, now it is 180 was till last year, now it is 196 million tons. Out of that, SAIL has a capacity of about 20 million tons. RINL has 7.3, and another 3 is in NMDC steel. So roughly 30% is in PSU. Now, SAIL is planning on increasing or augmenting their capacity. They have plans of roughly expansion of another 15 million tons by 2030 with an investment of about 1 lakh crore. So, no, it's not as if SAIL is just remaining where it is. They are augmenting their capacity. They are taking measures to improve their efficiencies, their production. All of that is happening. Uh, and I think SAIL is a very important player in the steel sector. As you said, it's the government has said that steel is not a strategic sector, but still SAIL is an important player in the steel sector, specifically from the public sector, but even otherwise, because they have a capacity. They are I would say, the second biggest producer in a way, because JSW has 33 million tons, and then Tata and SAIL both have roughly 21 million tons. So they are an important player, and SAIL is important for the government.
So, what is stopping government to go ahead with SAIL and RINL merger? They are complementary. RINL needs head, SAIL needs capacity.
RINL, the government has taken a decision that RINL will be kept as a uh, as a going entity. So as you know, by August 24, RINL was in very bad shape. They were almost out of the 3 blast furnaces they have. They had only one operating at a very minimal level. 2 was shut. But after that, RINL, when government decided and that RINL will be kept as a going concern, RINL has a sort of turnaround for the moment. So I would say from 645 crores of revenue, which they earned in September, in December, they earned a revenue of 2,000 crores. So more than 3 times. They are running 2 blast furnaces at more than 100% capacity. They ran that in December. And they need government support for or basically support for meeting their liabilities, which are very high. So government is considering that, examining that. You said why not merge? So as you know that there is a 21, a decision taken by the government in 21 that RINL will be disinvested. And that decision still holds. It has not been changed. But for the moment, we are basically keeping RINL as a going concern and trying to see that it operates in a efficient and productive manner.
Can I just clear the air on this, that can I say and summarize that the plans to merge RINL and SAIL, they've gone on the back burner?
Yeah, at present, there are no such plans before us.
Well, Steel Secretary of India, Mr. Sandeep Poundrik, really appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much for joining us and wish you a wonderful year ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thanks again.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.